phone call. I think it might have been the same lady. And she said, this is your credit card company. Can we ask you a question? I said, you can always ask. It's a free country. At least mine is. For now. Anyway, she said, are you, at this moment, trying to buy $8,000 worth of shoes in Seattle? Lady, I don't got that many feet. She said, we think somebody got hold of your credit card number. I said, who, Imelda Marcos? What the hell? You know, $8,000 worth of shoes? I mean, and the lady, okay, to her credit, she said, sir, if it's a lady, that might be 2 pairs of shoes. Oh, right, sorry. So I said, no, I am not trying to do that. And that is such a pain, because they have to cancel the credit card, and then they send you another one, and then you have to activate it and all that stuff, and go to your online thingies and everything, and then a month later they call you back again. Okay, bottom line, just don't use the damn credit cards. They're not worth it anymore. Use cash. Be old-fashioned like the rest of us.
To apologise, I just need to interrupt for a second. So apologies to the interruption to the panel. 2 VIP ticket holders who have booked their tickets under the name Heather Isles. Can you please come down to reception, please?
Your credit card has been stolen.
And also, just as another announcement, Johnny Bosch is signing right now. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll leave you back with Kage.
Oh, right. Oh, Bosch is signing right now? In the morning? See, we have a rule at Africon. We don't put stuff in the morning. You know, because we're civilized. We like our sleep. Ah, dear. And Ed is correct. I sometimes confuse, confuzzled in Sunnycon. I mean, it's England, right? You all sound alike to us, but it's because, you might have noticed, I'm old. I'm getting a lot older. Every day I notice I'm older. And it sneaks up on you because you don't realize at first that you're old until you have your first, what we folk call, senior moment. My first I had a couple years ago, and I'm never going to forget it. I woke up, and I was going to get breakfast, typical American breakfast, a bowl of cereal with milk. That's what most Americans have for their breakfast. And I went to the refrigerator, and I opened it, and I was rather surprised to see a box of cereal in the refrigerator. Okay, that's decidedly odd. But the concerning part was I didn't see the milk. I called up my father. I said, does this happen to you? And he said, get used to it. Actually, my father, until the day he died, he maintained a certain level of spryness. It runs in my family. There's a story that goes back many, many years. When my grandfather was still alive, he was in his early 90s. And my father, who was coming up into his 40s at that time, took him aside and said, Dad, I need to ask you a question. How old is a man when he starts to slow down? Grandpa thought about that and said, well, there's an old man up the street, let's ask him. So, yeah, my grandfather was, oh, hello, thank you very much. What a nice young man. Oh, it was his idea. It's only 24 hours late, but thank you very much.
Well, if you're going to complain about the morning this badly, you must be hungover.
Touché. You start getting very, very used to doctors when you are older. These, for example, people people are coming, I thought you had laser surgery. Yes, I did when I was young. But as you get older, your eyes simply stop doing what you want them to. So, can't read. So I gotta look down to the bifocal part here. And the right eye has started to weaken. Left eye is still fine. Perfect 20/20 vision. The right eye is running about 20/40. And the doctor told me this, and I said, okay, so this eye is still good, but this one is starting to kind of fade out. And he said, yes. And I said, could I have a monocle? And he said, you mean a monocle that is progressive and reading and all that stuff? I said, yeah. He said, okay, let me look into that. And he went to his little computer and came back and said, okay, $1,500. Really? No, these are fine, thank you very much. But that would have been so cool. I would look so extra British. Sorry?
Need a top hat.
I have a top hat. If you look at my Twitter trotter icon, I got a top hat in that. Yeah. I am always going to remember that laser surgery. There are some things that you never forget. You know, a man coming at you with a giant death ray poking it in your eye is one of them. I went in, and you walk past the room and you can see the thing. It's like this building-sized monolithic machine with this little point at the bottom. And they basically lower it down. So they told me how the surgery would be, so I had prepared myself. But nothing could really prepare me for what was happening. I'm sitting in the room, I'm kind of fidgeting back and forth and shuffling, and a nurse came in and she said, you seem anxious. I said, what gave it away? And she said, it's understandable, we're going to give you something for it. She came out with this little teeny pill, and she gave it to me, and I tossed the pill into my mouth, and go from there, it's done. And she went away, and I was still anxious about 10 minutes later. When she came back in, I said, excuse me, what was in that pill? And she told me the chemical name, and I said, how much? And she said, 0.5 milligram. I said, what, 0.5 milligram? Okay, lady, I don't know who the heck taught you pharmacology, but for one thing, I'm somewhat substantial. 0.5 milligram, I'm also really freaking upset right now. I mean, if you're going to give me 0.5 milligram of something, that something had better... And she said, he's ready. So they put me in this chair, and it's got wheels, and I'm going back and go, wow. Hey, is that doing that for you too? They took me into this room, and they took this whopping great clamp me, brothers, and they clamped my eye open very wide, and they clamped this eye open very wide, and the doctor came in, and he had invited me to bring along some music to play, soothing music. So I told him, loving him. So he got out, I had a little CD there, and I said, track 6, please. What better music for such an event than a little bit of the Ludwig van 9th Symphony? They started playing it and I screamed, not the 9th! My God, not the 9th! Just kidding. Wow. Looking up, I saw this enormous, blurry, red oval kind of floating in the air. And the doctor went kind of next to me, and he said, okay, don't move your eye. That's very important. Keep looking at the red dot. What part of it? He said, just somewhere in the middle. Okay, I focused in the middle, and I heard this loud noise going, tack, 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 tack. And the red dot went into a little tiny point like that. And I said, wow. You got to find a way to market this. And then the red dot kind of started to turn hazy. And I noticed there was smoke rising up in little curls. And I said, hey, dude, my my eye is smoking. How cool is that? So he came in with this massive pitcher of cold water and dumped it on my eye, and every single milliliter of it ran down and straight into my ear. And it was time for the left eye. The big pew down to that. Oh. And that was it. That was it. It just took a couple of minutes. And I came out of the room, and my parents were there. The idea was they were going to see me home. So the doctor got a large, long length of twine and tied it around my waist. And my parents tied the other end to the antenna on the car, and I just sort of floated along behind them as we went home. And I don't really remember too much of the rest of the night. It was sort of like last night. But I remember the next morning, because apparently that ½ milligram had worn off by then. Anybody here like to cook? They like to cook? You know how sometimes when you're slicing onions, you slice the onions and it starts. Now imagine you slice onions, and then you pick up the onions and mash them into your eye! That's kind of how it felt. The first thing I said when I woke up was, God, oh! But I should have known. I should have known, because when I was discussing with the doctor what surgery I should have, there is PRK, the photoreactive keratectomy, which is the one where they kind of, shave off the front of your eyeball. And then there is LASIK, when they take a scalpel and they slice into your eye and lift up this little flap, and then take a nail file and grind down the... See, that's how he described it to me. And when he did it, he had this dramatic music playing over it, like the Darth Vader theme, and that's LASIK. And then he turned the record over, and it was Call of Spring. Oh, and PRK, it's wonderful. We just use a little bit of laser just to gently move the front, a couple of atoms of your eyeball here. It was only when I was in the office and being worked up and ready and completely loopy at the time, and he said, just so you know, it's really gonna hurt for about 2 days. See, he waited. He's a smart guy, because I would have kicked him in the nads if he told me that earlier. For 2 days, I had what I called onion eye. And that's kind of tough. You can't drive a car, you can't walk around, your eyes are constantly wanting to close. But the third day, having worn glasses almost the entirety of my life, on the third day, sounds biblical, doesn't it? On the third day, I awoke to a tap on my shoulder. And my father was standing there, and this was the first time in my life that I had woken and seen my father clearly. He was the best looking guy at the time, I will tell you. But such things only last for a little while until time catches up to you. And time catches up to all of us. It'll happen to you too. And I'm gonna laugh when it does. Things stop working. Maybe I should explain that. The nervous system, for example, starts to short circuit. Even now, I can't feel much of my left leg. I got this horrible sciatic nonsense going on here. I was starting to get these awful pains in my shoulder. And nothing was helping. They weren't going away. So I went to see a doctor, and he said, you're going to have to see a neurologist. See, I don't know if they do that over here. You go to see your doctor, and he sends you to another doctor. That's his job. It's like he's got an entire list of other doctors who aren't him to send you to. But you still have to pay him. So he sent me to a neurologist. And this neurologist, I walked into his office, and I was immediately a little bit nervous because there was no carpeting. It was just a concrete floor. And I started to think, is that so it's easier to clean up the blood stains? What's going on here? And this little tiny Indian man came out, a gentleman from India, and he said, Mr. Conway, please come in, sir, please. And he sat me down in a chair, and he pulled out a needle about this big, and there was a wire hooked to it, and the wire went to an old-fashioned phonograph here with the horn speaker and all that. And he said, "Mr. Conway, I need you to stay very still while I poke you with this needle." Ow! Jesus, damn it! What the hell? He said, "Hold still, Mr. Conway, I need to put the needle in the right place. That, just give me a moment here." I can feel that! And all of a sudden, the needle found a particular spot, and the Victrola started going, meow. Really? He said, "That is the sound of your nose. Now please extend your arm." Like, this is neat. He said, "Oh yes, oh yes. Do you like the music? I can play the Beatles for you. See, listen, I am the Eggman, they are the Eggman, I am the Walrus. Cuckoo-ca-choo." So he pulled the needle out. I thought, "Oh God, we're done this." "Oh no, we're not done. We have 20 more to go." Ow! God damn it! Jesus! "How many nerves do I have in my arm?" He said, "About 20. I said, "Do you have to check them all?" He said, "Oh, I have to check all of them twice." "Oh, stop, please." He said, "No, God damn it." By the 5th one, I actually confessed to planning the 9/11 attacks. There were tears running down my face. And then he got cross. He said, "Mr. Comey, you're being a big baby. If you do not stop this, I'm going to put a diaper on you." No, not my thing. But I didn't think so. Oh, God, help me. Well, he diagnosed a pinched nerve. Yay, wow, after all that. So I had to go to the physical therapy where basically they put you in a room and you wiggle a bunch of rubber bands around for like 6 months or so, and then they proclaim you cured. I've been having pain in my arm again, but I'll live with it. Okay, there's an old expression about the cure being worse than the disease. That it was. How much time do I have? Not too much. Do you have equipment you have to truck in here? You know? Do you rent everything?
We've got a 15-minute window between panels, so you can go exactly to the...
That's not what I was asking. The convention, does it own equipment you have to truck in?
Oh, no, not really.
Good. Keep it that way.
We're very, very lucky.
Anthrocon owns a lot of stuff. And that is it. That's kind of a buzzword at Sunnycon. Stuff. We have a crew of volunteers that we call the Stuff Crew, because that's what they handle. They handle the stuff. The name came about early in their career. Prior to that, I would just grab whatever volunteers I could to help me load all this nonsense into this whopping big truck. And we would run it back to the storage area, and I would have to recruit whoever I could. You know, the homeless people, anything. Just help me offload this crap. And I was in the post-con, oh my God, state. I had 2 very, very, very hard-working volunteers that had followed me all the way home to help me unload this stuff. And I was doing the chairman fingers at breakfast. I took them and pardon me, excuse me, pardon me. And I had my head in my hands, and these fellas, ever so helpful, they said, "You know, Uncle Kage, you're really going about this wrong. You can't just grab random volunteers. What you need to do is you need to actually have dedicated staff members. You need to actually establish a logistics department. Get some guys whose entire job is just to move things around." And as I said that, I said, "Good, you're hired." And they said, "But wait," I said, "That's it. No, sorry. Only way out of this organization is feet first." I am not going to say that as a chairman I am a harsh taskmaster. But I do expect a lot out of my staff. We recently lost a very, very, very good and beloved staff member, a gentleman named Jay Badger, who lost his fight with cancer. He was one of my staff members for a number of years. He has been cremated. His urn is going to be at Anthrocon in his position with a staff badge on. I do not tolerate slacking. So yes, the stuff crew was born, or rather made, that day. And they performed admirably the next year. That was their job. They moved things around. If you had to have something shifted, they would shift it. They loaded the truck, they offloaded the truck, and it was wonderful. And I got back home and I didn't have to have the whole big rigmarole and finding people. I had guys ready to go. It was nice. And about 3 days later, I got an email from the convention center where we hold Anthrocon saying, "What do you want us to do with all this stuff?" I said, "Stuff?" And I sent an email to my crew that simply said, "Stuff?" Apparently there were several boxes marked property of Anthrocon that were lying about there. Okay. To their credit, they'd sort of been shoved off into a corner. We missed them, so I actually had to send somebody back to collect them and keep them for me until they could get back to Pittsburgh. But these guys have been fantastic ever since. Every convention needs a stuff crew because they know where everything is. It used to be, and it was like a comedy show. Everything would get offloaded and distributed to random places. And if you needed something, you either had to get on the radio and plead for it, or you had to run around to all these places like a scavenger hunt to find what you were looking for. Now these guys know where everything is. Got people like that? Great, great. Smart fellow, smart fellow. My job simply is to get the truck. They do everything else. Near my house, there is a truck rental place. And the first year we did it, we got this nice big cargo van, and I was happy with that. And last year, I called them up and said, "It's me again, I want another cargo van." And they said, "Absolutely sure, you know, come in at 8 o'clock this date." And I went. I didn't actually see a cargo van outside. And I went into the office and I said, "Hey, it's me. I'm here for my van." They said, "Oh yes, sign here, 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 and here." "Okay, thank you very much." And I went outside. Excuse me, where exactly is it? She said it's out in the lot. I'm sorry, you must think I'm terribly dense, but I don't actually see it out there. And she said, "It's the second one in." I don't think that's going to be big enough. And she said, "Well, that's what you asked for." I said, "I asked for a cargo van, not a Tonka toy. I mean, what is this? You know, if I get in an accident in that thing, well, my body won't move around, I'll tell you that." And she said, "Well, if you don't want it, the only other thing we have is one of the big panel trucks. It'll cost you twice, and they, you know, eat like 50 times as much petrol, as you guys say." So I said, "All right, I'll take it. If we can't fit everything in, maybe I'll just like ship some things, get FedEx or something, put it in boxes and ship it along." And I went and I got in this van. It was kind of claustrophobic in there. And I started driving home, and I kept looking in the rearview mirror at the back doors, the cargo doors. And I stopped at a red light, and I reached back, because we're on this side. I reached back, and my fingers were able to touch the doors. No, this is not going to be big enough. No. So I went back to the rental place, and I was going to tell the lady off and say, "I'm very, very displeased. I'm an unhappy customer. You must compensate me for this." And when I drove in, there were storm clouds gathering. It was going to be an awful rainy day, but there was a gap in the clouds, and a single ray of light was shining down on this massive, full-size Dodge ProMaster cargo van that had not been there when I left. And I saw it gleaming, illuminated. I could hear the heavenly choir. Oh, Solani. And I ran inside and say, hey, who, is that promised to anybody? And she said, no. I said, well, gimme! She said, I can't. Why? She said, it's not been cleaned. I said, I will lick the son of a bitch clean. Give it to me now! So she did, and I did. I wish I had taken a photo as we finished loading it. The van was completely full, floor to ceiling, panel to panel. The very last box fit just like a jigsaw piece into the back. I was like, yes! Every once in a while, something works. And it's rare enough that we treasure those moments. We are in a customer service organization. It is very, very important for any staff member, no matter how stressed we get. Ed is real good at this. When he is dying, you must maintain a smile. You must maintain a calm exterior. You do not want to upset or be rude to your customers. I knew a fellow once could have taken this lesson. When I was a wee scrap of a boy, it's your language, I'm just trying to use it. There was a bookstore that was located nearby to my home. And my late friend Neil and I had a Friday ritual. We would take our meager earnings from our jobs, and we went first to a comic book store, which we called the cultural literature store to fool mom. And we would buy our cultural literature, and then we would go to the bookstore, Jean's Books, it was called, Jean's Books. And we would haunt the shelves, and we'd find books that we wanted, and we would buy them. They were like 95 cents back then. Yes, that's how old I am. And that 3-4 years going on. This is what we did every Friday. And at last, once when I was in there looking around, the lady at the cashier counter came up to me and she said, you boys had better watch yourselves. Why? Are there spiders on the ceiling? Why? What's going on? She said, Gene thinks you're ripping him off. I said, what? Why? We come in here every week. We buy something every week. She said, yes, but you come in with bags from the comic book store and he thinks you're shoplifting. I said, hasn't he seen? We probably have spent $4,000 between the two of us on his dang books. And she said, well, he's just be careful. All right. So I finished looking around. I even remember I had picked up an Ursula K. Le Guin book, and I was taking it to the front counter when Gene suddenly stepped in my path. And he said, may I see what's in your bag? I said, this bag? He said, yes. I said, may I ask why? He said, I just would like to see what's in it. I said, are you going to ask that lady what's in her bag as well? And he said, no. I said, very well. You may look in the bag. And he looked in the bag, was satisfied, handed it back. And I said, thank you. I handed him the Ursula K. Le Guin book. I said, Neil, let's go. We're leaving. And we walked out, and we never went back. That's how you're going to treat your damn customers. They're not going to come back. It was 21 years later that I was back in that area, my boyhood home, and getting together with some friends, and we were at that same little shopping center, and Jean's Books was still there. And I said to my friends, you see that? That's Jean's Books. And there was a little cafe, and a gentleman who was reading a newspaper, and he looked up and he said, ah yes, Jean's Books, finest bookstore on the East Coast. And I said, I beg to differ, sir. And he said, oh, what do you mean? Well, you know how when I tell stories, people for some reason just start to gather round? I started telling that story. Added a few flourishes, you know, add some guns in. People love to hear about guns and such. So I was I was making gestures and using big words and everything, and I had the crowd going, and there must have been 50, 60 people coming around listening to this old guy up here talk, and this horrible, and this monstrous fellow. How could he treat his beloved customers that way? I say, damn you, sir! And I was having a ball. And I ended with, and I have never set foot into that wretched establishment ever since. And I stepped down from the soapbox I was on. I grabbed my friend and said, let's go, quick, let's go. And they said, why? I said, that guy with the newspaper? That was Gene! Those little girls here still? No. Okay, there's a saying in Freight Family, you don't fuck with Uncle Kage. I'm very, very nearly out of time. I'm trying to decide, should I get into another story, or should I just run away? I don't know, which should it be?
Story.
I'm so glad they said that.
Maybe stop, but even I can't help you now.
I did tell this last year, didn't I? Did I tell it on this stage, that tale? Maybe it's time we let them in on the joke.
Yes. Tell us.
I like sake. Some people believe that I'm a connoisseur of sake. I am not. When it comes to sake and wine, I am not a connoisseur, I'm a lush. You all know the difference, yes? The difference is whether you spit or swallow at the wine tasting. At the wine tasting. What are you thinking? Tosser. Anyway. As I said, it's just a language. I'm trying to use it here. So, some friends, when I moved to the lovely city of Raleigh in North Carolina, for which these days I fear I must apologize, but that's another tale. There are some local furries. The Research Triangle is there, and they call themselves the Triangle Furs. They're wonderful folk. When they found out that I moved to the area, some of them got together, and they said, we're going to take you to a sake bar. I'm like, I like the sound of that. That makes me happy in my pants when you say those words. Can you say it again, please? Sake bar. So, we went to this nice little restaurant. It was an Asian kind of fusion-ish restaurant thing. And apparently it's got a sake bar. So I happily went inside and I sat down and I'm like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And the waiter came over, an Asian gentleman who, looked like just off the boat from China or Singapore. He said, how y'all doing? No, dude, can you at least put on a pretend accent? You're ruining the magic here. So then I said, okay, what kind of sake do you have? And he said, we got both kinds. We got hot and cold. I looked at my friends, and they sort of... And I looked back at the waiter and said, okay, what brand? What region from Japan does the rice come from? Is it milled? And he looked at me blankly and said, let me get to the menu. Yeah, you do that. And I looked at them again. He brought me the menu, and they had exactly 4 sakes on there. 3 of them were bottom-of-the-barrel horse-piss California sakes. One of them was apparently their top-shelf prize. It was a rather low-end Japanese import, tolerable, but this was the best they had to offer. So I said, bring me some of that, would you please? kind of eyeing them. Sake bar, really? And I saw the waiter come over, and from my peripheral vision, I still have that, peripheral vision, I saw a tray come in with a glass, and I saw a bottle about to pour, and I saw something else, and I turned, I said, "Stop! What is that?" Sticking out of my glass was a cucumber. He said, "It's a cucumber." I said, "I can see that. What the hell is it doing in my glass?" He said, "Didn't you want it?" Okay. Work with me here. We're going to have a little mental exercise, okay? Imagine that I have just walked in to the finest steakhouse in New York City. And I take off my opera cloak, and I hand it, "Thank you, Garçon, yes, my usual table. Could you start me out with a glass of Saint-Emilion 2003? Oh, and could you drop a dead trout in it for me? Maybe filter it through an old jock strap before I have to say, no, I don't want the damn cucumber!" Since that time, there is always some wanker when I go out for sake who thinks it's funny to bring along a cucumber to tease me. And you can ask any one of them to describe the experience of having a cucumber inserted forcibly up one's bum. And thank you very much. I'll leave it with that singular word. Love you guys.